flea markets, swap meets, oh my.
A scarce Valiant comic plummets in value.
And a hot book of the week from Fantagraphics. You know it's another episode of Bronze and Modern Gods. Richard, what is going on, buddy?
Not much, John. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hey, everybody, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods. A lot to get to this week. Thanks to all the new subscribers, all the new viewers, all the new members. If you're new here, we've got some segments like Underrated Books of the Week. We've got the 25-year rule where we go back to 1999 and a dark period in comic book history. Yes. We've got lots of viewer mail. And as always, we start off with our hot book of the week. Richard, you're going to take some particular joy in telling people about this.
All right, the hot book this week is Hate Revisited. You've heard us talk about this book a few times on the podcast. It's a revival of Peter Baggy's iconic 90s indie Hate.
Yeah.
Which pretty much chronicled the grunge era in Seattle along with suburbia.
Now, we've been talking about this because Richard and I both loved Peter Baggy's Hate in the 90s. And when we saw they were bringing it back, we were wanting to tell you guys, hey, go pick this up. This is good. Well, just so happens issue 4 came out last week, 4-issue miniseries. And our friend Eric, who owns Comics or Go in Richard's neck of the wood, Northeast Ohio, he tipped us off a sale of this issue 1 on eBay for $149. Now, I went and looked. It seems to be an outlier for some reason, but there have been several completed sales, anywhere from $20 to $99, with $40 being about the average for this. Richard, what do you think is driving sales for this?
It's nostalgia. I really think it's nostalgia. People from, have fond memories of this highlight in the 90s, and the fact that it's returned and it has new stories, I think, is driving that affluent crowd, because those people have money to spend money on this book.
Do you think the cover has anything to do with it?
Oh, of course it does. For those who don't know, the cover it shows a woman with a Black Lives Matter sign whacking a guy with a MAGA hat.
Not just any woman. That's Valerie. That's Val whacking Buddy with a Black Lives Matter placard on his head.
Yeah. Oh, it's classic. Hate is a book that you really have to take tongue in cheek, and it's that cover definitely is polarizing. But I think a lot of it is being driven because people, even with that cover, people aren't going to pay a huge premium unless they have some kind of attachment to it.
I think there's a very low print run for this as well. I don't think a lot of comic shops ordered it and knew how many fans Peter Baggy had still. Now, as far as the content of this cover, Peter Baggy is a notorious libertarian. There's a magazine called Reason, which is a libertarian rag, and he would always draw a feature for that. So I don't think he's taking any particular side here. I think he's pointing out the ludicrousness of both sides here. But I can guarantee you one thing from several people who have hit us up in the comments and on DMs giving us credit for this. I don't know if Bronze and Modern Gods can take any quote unquote credit for driving sales of this up. I will say this. I guarantee you we're the only YouTube channel talking about this book.
Yeah, we probably are. If go to your LCS, check it out. There may be some copies lurking around, hiding in stacks. Pick it up. It's definitely a great read, and apparently also a good value.
And if you're not a fan, flip it and get the money and buy something you want. If you are a fan and you didn't know this was out and you want to read it and you don't want to spend that money, it is available on Kindle for $4.99. If you just want to read it, the whole series is up digitally. Do it. It's great. We love us some Peter Baggy. When we switch to the screen, we don't do it to scare you if you're watching on a 70-inch TV. We do it because it's time for a weekly segment called Show and Tell. Richard, our friend, our good buddy, Forrest, aka DD Comics Fan on Instagram, he is here in Long Beach this weekend. Of course, he's working right now, so he can't be a guest on the show. But he and I took a little road trip to Frank and Son's collectible show yesterday. You've been there with me as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell everybody what that is.
Oh, it's like it's hard to equate. It's kind of like a flea market for comic books. There's a lot of a lot of small booths in this large enclosed area, and the dealers have a lot of a variety of stuff. You know, you can go from booth to booth and find all kinds of comics.
It is a huge storefront that used to be a Sam's Club. And when the Sam's Club went out of business, the owners of Frankensons bought it, transformed it into a collectible swap meet. There's comics, there's tons of Magic the Gathering and Pokemon cards. There's tons of figure collectibles and statue booths, just booth after booth after booth of collectibles. It is a feast for the eyes and a pain for the wallet. As you'll see, I got a couple things from there yesterday. The first one I want to show is I've never seen this book physically in person before. Never saw a copy, and I saw it yesterday, and I just had to have it. It was Wacky Races #1.
Oh,
There's Penelope Pit Stop and Mugsley at the bottom with Count Dastardly. Issue 1 of
that brings back so many memories. Remember when cereal boxes had actual prizes in them, or they used to have models of all the cars on the Wacky Races, and I remember building those cars and eating a lot of cereal in the process.
I just remember I kept getting the caveman one over and over. And then when I got a different one, finally, it was Penelope Pit Stop. I did not want Penelope. I wanted Count Dastardly and Muttley. But there you go.
Great memories.
Issue
for those who don't know, it was a cartoon on Saturday mornings back in the 70s. Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which was Hanna-Barbera basically dominated my childhood when it came to cartoons.
And totally a one-season wonder. Just ran.
Was it really only one season?
Yeah, it just ran in reruns over and over. And then when they did Laugh Olympics, they brought back a lot of these characters to participate in the Laugh Olympics, which is another run I want to get eventually. But I paid $22 for this sucker.
Oh, good pickup.
Very good snag. It's got a spine roll. It's got some dirt. I need to press it and fix the spine roll and clean it up a bit. But very, very happy to pick that up at beautiful Frankensons yesterday. What do you have?
Well, you know, we're gonna talk a bit about facsimiles later on today. And so one of the things I wanted to call out is kind of the right way to do facsimiles. Here is Giant Size X-Men #1. From Marvel. Marvel made a number, and so this is basically a complete reprint of the original Giant Size X-Men, the first appearance of the new X-Men team. Outside, well, yes, first appearance. Now, notice here in the upper corner, the price here is not 50 cents; it's $4.99. As
Can we give them credit also for keeping this Curtis Circulation logo underneath?
Isn't that cool? Yeah, right there, the little CC.
Yeah.
Not only that, there is a barcode on the cover, which the original did not have.
Not on the back cover, on the front cover.
And then the front cover. And then there is the Marvel logo there at the bottom, which it did not. So there are a number of callouts. If I was to see this in an auction in the eBay, there are a number of ways I could identify this as being the reprint by looking at the cover. So kudos to Marvel for at least doing this. Now they also do other reprints. What is the name of that line? I'm just totally ad-libbing it now.
The old True Believer reprints,
True Believers, right? They do the True Believers, which has a masthead that says True Believers across the top.
Yeah,
it's also a reprint, but
they retired that line, but they were very distinctively reprints.
Right. And while Marvel gets no money from the secondary market, you know, as these books sell to collectors over the years, Marvel doesn't make any money out of it. But they do need to differentiate between the originals and reprints. And I think this one does a good job at giving the original feel without plagiarizing too much the exact look of the original.
Now, Richard will share a bad example of one that is not very good later on in the show. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
Yep. Yep.
I am super happy. Saw this yesterday. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Jeff and his friends there at Bam Splat Pow Comics at Frankensons Collectibles. They have a booth. Make sure you go see them. They also do a lot of local shows. So if you haven't never run into Jeff and Blam Spat Pow Comics, please check him out. He has lots of oddball stuff. He's been on the show before. And he knows what I like. And I get there yesterday. I'm not going to spend any money. Nope. I don't want to spend any money. 4-color 990 Huckleberry Hound. First appearance of Yogi Bear in comics. First appearance of Pixie. I'm blanking. Mr. Jinx, Pixie and Dixie.
Mm-hmm.
How can I say no? How can I say no to this?
That's hilarious.
Oh my darling, oh my darling. You know,
another cartoon from the 70s that is a part of my childhood.
Hanna-Barbera production. Very nice copy. It needs a press and a clean. But how often do you see the first Yogi Bear?
I know. Beautiful.
And very excited. And I want to give a special shout out and thank you to them because they gave me a smoking hot deal on this, where I was, gonna walk away because I told myself I'm in Susie Orman's savings mode for retirement. I thought, and then Jeff got on the phone and said, "Give it to John for this price." And I was like, "Oh, thank you guys. Thank you for separating me from my money." And glad to help you guys out. Go check them out at Frankensons. What do you got?
Let's see. Another book I if it wasn't for the hate book, would think would be the hot book this week is Absolute Wonder Woman.
What did you think?
I thought it was great. I loved it. It was a great book. It is complete. Did you?
I liked it more than Absolute Batman.
I agree with you completely. I agree completely. It just had that feel of keeping Wonder Woman, who is basically a warrior and at heart, keeping that feel and layering on a different interpretation of her and her role and her origin. And I'm not going to spoil it because anybody who hasn't read it needs to read it because it is a really, really good read.
Selling for $15 already yesterday at Frankensons.
Yes.
Whereas Absolute Batman was selling for $19.
Really? Okay. Batman is ultimately more popular of a character.
Those are asking prices. I don't know if they were selling, but that's what people were asking. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Right. So if you haven't read it, please pick up a copy while you can and read it. But my pick is Wonder Woman 750. This was an example. Wonder Woman hit a milestone, and they released this massive. You can see it's square bound, massive book back. This was 2 years ago. At this point, time flies. They had a huge number of variant covers. This is a Josh Middleton cover, which is just stunning. Wonder Woman has certain personas, and this highlights one. Where she's riding the white horse and she's got her lasso, and this is that, and you can see the American flag in the background, even though she's not American. It just gives that original feel from the 30s that Wonder Woman had back in the golden age. So this just a beautiful, beautiful cover. There are a number of covers for, like I said, for 750. It was that milestone that they went hog heaven on making variants, but this is one of my favorite ones.
Another great thing about Frankensons, sorry to go back to that, it has something to do with what you're showing, is sometimes the vendors there over order on a lot of books, so you get great deals on things like that they over ordered on. One vendor there yesterday had so many copies of the Green Arrow anniversary special. I mean, like literal rows and rows of every cover, every variant cover. And they were asking very fair prices. I think they were 50% off. So you can get some great deals there. One thing I want to show it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to show it because I want to just reinforce that I don't just buy oddball stuff. I do like mainstream superheroes and comic books. And I haven't shown this in a long time. I don't think I've ever shown it on a non-members only show. And it's funny you queued me up again. Richard and I are psychic with your giant size X-Men #1 because I have X-Men 94,
Oh, okay.
9.2 with the custom label there and off white pages, but nice sharp copy, right?
Uh-huh.
I bought this as a 7.5, by the way.
Oh,
It was
really?
Oh, it was wrinkled. It was dirty on the back. It was salvageable. It was wrinkled, but it wasn't color breaking. Like there were big finger bends across the top.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely one of my big success stories. Cleaning and pressing. But I'm showing this book not only to reinforce the fact, yes, I am one of you guys. I don't just buy Yogi Bear stuff. I like superheroes too. Been having very serious conversations with a few people about the future of this hobby,
Okay.
and particularly the future of this hobby, people in our age group. When is it time to let go? When is it time to let go of an X-Men 94, an Avengers #4, 8.5? Specific books I have in my collection that sit right over here in boxes that I never get to see.
Right.
I don't have a comic book room like you where I can display it. I don't have a basement like our friend Forrest where he's got 100 and some books on display and he can look at them. My space is limited here in California, and I buy stuff and I put it in a box and I never look at it.
Well, the obvious answer is to buy another house with a room that you can put comics in.
That is one answer. The other answer is how long are we supposed to keep it? When do we let go? Because, growing up, you and I coming up, oh, it's our retirement fund. Guess what? It's retirement time.
Right. And do you want your family to have to deal with it after you're gone? It's we have each other for family if one of us goes. But a lot of people just don't have those kinds of resources, and their spouse will have to figure out what to do with 75 long boxes worth of comics.
What is the succession plan? Should there be one? Should you handle this before anything like that?
Mhm.
I'm not ashamed to say I'm 56, going to be 57 early next year. And is it worth it for me to have thousands of dollars worth of plastic encased comic books sitting here in a box when I can convert it to liquid cash and invest it in a Roth IRA and have, an 18 to 20% return with the S&P 500 each year?
Yeah. No, that is a very, very big question for us specifically because we are reaching that age. But I know a lot of our audience also is of a similar age, and it's a valid question. I mean, I love my comics. I get satisfaction of knowing that I own them and collecting them, but there has to be an end state for that. I mean, you can't take it with you. You need to figure out at some point, what are you going to do with your collection? It needs to be handled and thought about before you reach a point where you're unable to do that.
Precisely. And I hear some of you screaming at your TV, phone, tablet, whatever right now. John, you've purged your books twice. Have you learned nothing from the past? Here's why I think it's different now. Okay. My age, and the age of collectors. And by that, I mean, look at the heritage auction that's happening right now. It is insane. Several copies of huge key books that never come to market are all at market at the same time competing with each other, which is driving down value.
Yeah.
Books are going down. I think a lot of that has to do with people a little older than us dying off and their heirs liquidating their collections. And then a lot of it has to do with we're not buying those books because we don't have those big money, that big money. But anyone 35 or under, with the exception of maybe our good friend Jeff, the Golden Age Guru, they're not interested in these books.
Yeah.
And it's tough for young people. It's tough for younger people out there right now. They can't afford to buy houses. The interest rate and costs, let alone highly expensive comic books. So is that market going to die off in the next 10 years?
Well, also their pivot point, that their 25-year rule is going to be a lot newer of books. You showcased a bunch of books that I absolutely love, the Hanna-Barbera books.
Mhm.
But that's because I grew up watching those cartoons.
Zero frame of reference for anyone
Right.
under 40. Zero frame of reference. Now, I would normally say anyone under 30, but we're old enough now that you've got to be at least 41 to get. What is Wacky Races? I've never heard of this, John. What's a
Right.
Lancelot Link? I've never heard of this, John. So, what is the potential pool of buyers out there for this? And will we miss that window if we don't move now? Now, let me back it up a little bit, guys. I'm not quitting collecting comics. I'm not quitting the show. I'm not saying sell, sell, sell. I'm just saying I'm having a real existential crisis with high dollar books in my collection. I still love my war, my westerns, and my oddball stuff. There's no reason to sell that stuff. But, Captain America Comics number 10. The Venuses I've replaced. I might keep those. I'm not going to get rid of those again. But I have an Avengers 4. Do I need an Avengers 4?
Yeah, I agree. I'm now that you voiced it, I totally agree with you. There are a number of books in my collection that are higher value, and I don't really have a tight connection to them.
Mm-hmm.
It might be time to, we've talked in the past about wanting to shrink our collection down significantly. I always wanted to have a collection that would fit in 2 short boxes.
Right.
And those books would be significant to me, and it would also be easy to manage in terms of a transition if something happened to me. So maybe that's more than just lip service. Maybe I need to start looking at taking, my basement, which has racks of drawer boxes, long boxes worth of comics. I need to start looking at clearing some of that stuff out just so that I can do it instead of my wife having to think about it.
I do not have the answers. I don't know the answers. I don't pretend to know the answers. It's just a point of discussion, everyone.
Yeah.
And you are all welcome to join in. We want you to join in the comments. We want you to voice what you think, because it's a journey we would take together on the show, should I choose to do this.
Yeah. And I would love to hear from our younger audience and hear what their opinion is of it, and where you stand when you look at your future in terms of collecting, because I think that's an insight that John and I would really appreciate getting.
Yeah, I would love to hear that if there's anyone 40 under watching, all 3 of you. I don't want to wait too long. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
You know what? But yes, I agree with you. But the time to sell them though was in 2021.
Oh, we missed the window.
I just missed the window.
Absolutely, we missed the window. I just don't want to miss making some money off of it while I still can. And I don't know if the window comes back around again, because this is a cyclical hobby. I just think, the MCU is not what it was. Is Chris Evans coming back as Captain America? Who knows? That's the kind of things that drove that frenzy.
Right.
But yeah, just thought I'd just throw a big fat grenade in the discussion this week.
No, it's great. I love the conversation.
Let's go back to what we love. Show us your last show and tell book, please.
Yeah, my last one is this is Miles Morales Spider-Man Annual #1. It is one of the few CBCS books I have in my collection.
Oh, that old label.
Yeah, it's an old label. It's not the greatest, but the case is rock solid. That is the one advantage that I think CBCS has always had over CGC's case. This thing does not flex. You could flex a CGC case and see a little daylight between the cracks. Now this thing does not flex.
Banana.
I love it. And the back, it's got, you see the little barcode. There it is. They're over there. You scan that barcode, you get the grader's notes. which is awesome because CGC now does that, but this has been a couple years, and I just love the cover. It's a distressed comic, which always is fun grading, I'm sure.
It's like a pulp.
Yeah, like a pulp, exactly. That's what it's supposed to be mirroring, is it's that pulp look, and I just love the look of the cover. I mean, it's unique. You see Miles there with the camera. It's a unique cover, and I had to get a copy of it, and at the time it was reasonably priced, so I got a pre-graded copy of it.
Very nice. I think you made the same mistake I did. I used to think that was a camera on the cover. That's the amulet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to think.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it's the amulet, and he's like hanging upside down like Indiana
All this
Jones.
time I thought that was a camera.
I did. Yeah, I'm with you. Don't worry. It's so funny. Again, Richard and I are psychic. I spent a good 10 minutes yesterday showing off the new CBCS cases to our friend Forrest, trying to convince him to slap some books in them. And I walked him through the case and I showed him how different it was. And yeah, I don't know if I made it a new customer, but at least I was able to talk to him about it. Hey, before I sell all my books, you might want to support the show. Yes, if you become a member here on YouTube for the cost of just $2.99 a month, you can get part of exclusive live episodes on Wednesday with more show and tell. You get live members only streams on Thursdays, shout outs. So you see the names flying by here, and you help Richard and I pay for things like StreamYard, which is doubling in price. Thank you, StreamYard. I wish there was an alternative that was easier to use, but that is what it is. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We just like having provocative discussions about collecting. Drama-free. Hit join right here on YouTube next to the subscribe button, or look in the description for the link if you are watching or listening on another platform that is not YouTube. Let's go to viewer mail.
You've got mail.
No idea why I'm talking like this, but you get our first piece of viewer mail.
My first piece is from Brian Baros, who responded to our bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com address. This is okay. This is not about comics, but it's about music, which is kind of both John and ours. We have a lot of ties in terms of relationships, and one of those is music. So this is, I think, apropos to this podcast. We're going to try to put more comic book content in the future. We were talking about the best year for music. Hey guys, love your podcasts. Always look forward to new episodes. John, I get your passion for the year 1983, but as you went down your list, I noticed you didn't name one African-American artist or band. We have a pretty big influence on American music. If you rewind just 1 year, you have the release of Thriller in 1999 by Prince, two of the most important records ever, in my opinion. Your claim that 1983 is the best year for albums ever is misguided, in my opinion. It's an unbelievable year if you're focusing on 80s Europop and rock, but not as a R&B, soul, and soft rock fan. It's not even close. I'll just take 1977 as an example. Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, Asia by Steely Dan, one of my top 3 albums of all time.
I like using test stereo equipment. I always use Asia.
Do you really? Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, it's great sound. The Clash, Saturday Night Fever, as well as great albums from the Commodores, Minnie Riperton, Earth, Wind and Fire, Al Green. I don't expect this ever to make the show, of course. Haha. I just had to give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. Keep up the great work with comics anyway, Brian. Brian, yeah, John and I go back and forth. My year is 1978, so I am right there with your 77. You know, I grew up with the Jackson 5 back in the day when Michael Jackson was like 4 foot tall, had a huge afro.
Original.
Yes. So, you know, I understand what you're saying. I shared that kind of background with you from the 70s. Fleetwood Mac, like I said, Steely Dan, Gaucho also are 2 of my favorite albums of all time. So I hear exactly what you're saying. John and I, our relationship has, you know, we met each other back in the mid 80s.
80s.
And pardon?
87.
87.
Yeah.
And so we share a common language of the music around that period. So that's where a lot of our musical tastes blend and our conversations happen. You're right. 1983 is a great year for Europop. And I guess it's all about perspective and an individual set of choices and preferences. So your point about 77 is absolutely valid. But I think John's point about 83 is also valid. It depends on you know, your personal history and background, kind of just like comics. What's important to you for comics? It's dependent upon your background and what you listen to as a kid. So appreciate your email. I love talking about music, and it's again, it's an important part of John and my personal relationship.
Brian, you ignorant slut. I'm kidding. You said it in your email, Brian. You said it perfectly. It's an unbelievable year if you're focusing on 80s Euro pop and rock, which I absolutely am. That's what I like. It's kind of like, you know, Richard, what's your favorite SNL cast of all time?
What's his name? Why'd you ask me that? The guy who has he has his own TV show. Crap.
Narrowing it down. Thank you.
Bill Hader.
So you like the Bill Hader era of SNL?
I love Bill Hader. Yeah, he's great.
The cast, though, is that your favorite cast? Bill Hader.
Oh, my favorite cast. Not my favorite cast. That's a tough one because each one has a certain advantage to it. Michael Myers era. Yeah.
See, I'm of the opinion your favorite SNL cast is the cast that you grew up with right around college or high school. At the end of high school. So for me, it is absolutely Dana Carvey, Nora Dunn, Dennis Miller, Mike Myers, Victoria Jackson, and Jan Hooks and Phil Hartman. No one touches that cast, but that's because I grew up with them. It's what I was exposed to. Same with music. 83 was that 10th grade sweet spot for me. I'm 15 years old. I'm getting into music big time for the first time in my life. But Brian, Thriller is undeniable. 1999 is undeniable. Africa Bambaataa, Planet Rock is undeniable. That's actually 83, I believe, where the others are 82. But Prince and Michael Jackson were so dominant, and I was so alternative and edgy that, you know, I couldn't take it. So, but you like that, and you like soft rock, so 77 is going to be your jam. You said it yourself, Brian. I did not mean to slight anyone, just telling you what I like. And I like me some comic books too. So let's get to that real quick. Sorry, everybody. My first viewer mail comes from our email at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com from Steve Vacola. Hi, guys. Got a question for you / humble brag. Do you two ever go hunting for comics at flea markets, yard sales, or antique shops? I live in SoCal and check out some of the local fleas from time to time. They're okay, but everything is usually priced fair market value or higher. This last month or so, I've been visiting my parents up in Maine, and I feel like I've pillaged the state. I filled up 2 whole short boxes of loot so far. I attached a pic of the sample of the bounty. Most were in the $2 to $5 range, with the most expensive being Avengers number 25, which was a whopping $20 at a flea market. The last time I was up here, I came across a copy of Stan Lee's Secrets Behind the Comics from 1947 in an antique shop. Do you guys hunt at these types of places? And if so, what are your biggest finds? Steve, look at this picture that Steve sent us.
That is an amazing haul. Congratulations.
Steve, again, you said it all in your email as well. I'm in Southern California, and I feel you. I go to the Long Beach flea market, and there's a guy selling comics there, and he wants $20 for Team America #1. No, dude, not happening. And anything that's really good has already been picked over. There's a lot of us vultures that live here in Southern California. However, when I travel for work, you better believe I'm hoofing it. I'm going to antique shops. When I go to Ohio, I don't tell Richard and Forrest. I go up and grab stuff, and then I tell them, look what I found.
Yes. He comes in like invading army and goes to all the comic shops and just sweeps them clean.
It's not my fault you left Static 45 sitting on a shelf there at your local LCS for $50 for months. And then I swoop in and buy it and press it and get a 9.6. That's not my fault. Get off your tuchus, buddy. I am a hustler. So yeah, boy, dude, congrats. Great grab. And I love me some antique shops and flea markets out of state.
Yep, that's fun. That's one of the things about the comic book hobby. It's is the thrill of the chase. Coming across a stash in the back of, you know, some antique store, and you come across a whole bunch of Silver Age books that, oh, those old things, you know, I'll give me $50 for the box. You know, things like that. Those are always the fantasy I have running through my head when I walk into an antique store. So
yeah, it's not that way anymore. I mean, now you find people and they think they know what they have. They don't know how to grade. It's coverless. It's split. It's, you know, I want $4,000 for that. No, dude. And you try to explain to them, and they're on edge, and they think you're trying to rip them off all the time. Because probably people probably are, but I have a little ethical standard, and I won't do that. But it doesn't work all the time. What do you have?
My next piece of viewer mail is from E&E Comics on YouTube. It'll be interesting to see how many of the Venom 3 facsimiles slip through CGC cracks and aren't properly labeled as facsimiles.
Here we go. Full circle moment.
All right. So if you guys were a part of our live show on Thursday, members only live show, you would have seen me feature this and would have had a heads up on it. But here is Venom number 3. First print, first appearance of Null. Okay, Null is guaranteed to be in the next Venom flick. So this book has had a up and down. Now it's up. It's about $150 for a high grade raw. Right. Here is, I went to my comic book store to buy Wonder Woman because I really wanted to get a copy of it, and saw this 6 copies of this on the shelf. Okay? Got excited. I was going to buy them sight unseen. I was just going to pick up the whole stack and head right for the register. But something didn't look right. And if you look at the UPC box, you see it says 00111. That means 001 means it's the first issue. 1, it means it's the first print, and the third one means it is the first variant of that print. So all this means is, and notice the issue number 3 here at the top. This should say 003 down there in the UPC box. If you look at this copy, you see it says 00311.
Yep.
The 2 copies. This is a facsimile. This book here is a facsimile. Marvel does not call it out as a facsimile anywhere. They have very similar UPC boxes. Here, I'll put them both up. You can see the real one is in the back, and the facsimile is in the front. The only difference is that digital edition, that digital bonus text at the bottom, and the difference in the UPC code. Other than that, the covers are virtually identical.
Yep.
The backs, I'm not pulling mine out of this, but the back is also the same. There is no way of telling, unless you're very studious and very observant, the difference between those books.
And the indicia on the facsimile does say
it
Venom 3 facsimile edition. But how many young people, here we go, young people again, how many new collectors are going to look on the last page of the comic at the indicia?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the last page of the comic. It touts a book that's going on sale in 7/25/18.
It's a facsimile. They're trying to recreate it. Yeah.
And very small there in the indicia, you see December 24th facsimile edition.
Yep. There you go.
So I've seen sales on eBay. I've seen listings on eBay. The first day this came out, I saw a couple sales. I've seen listings on eBay where they do not call out that it is a facsimile, and they have auctions. So they're hoping people bid it up without knowing what they're bidding on. You know, we were talking about morals and ethics. I think that's a violation of both.
Yep.
But I just want people to be aware that exists. And if you're in the market for a Venom 3, just be aware that that facsimile came out without much fanfare. I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah. I can't even keep track of the facsimiles now. DC is big in the game now. They're doing a whole bunch. Buyer beware and be aware. My next piece of your mail comes from our email at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com from member David Lewis. Hi, gents. My wife and I recently moved out of LA into Monrovia. Why didn't I do this years ago? John, you should have told me. Don't get me started about leaving LA. We attended the Old Town Hall Festival and cruised by the library to entertain our 8-month-old. After entering and making our way past the front desk, I noticed a sizable comic and graphic novel section ripe with omnibuses and killer reads. Up to this point, I've primarily been a collector. I've read several Silver Surfer storylines, Infinity War, and a couple of others, but I don't like to open the books. Thanks, Dad, for fear of damaging the resale value. However, I now have a way to have my cake and eat it too. I signed up for a card and checked out all 3 volumes of the Frank Miller DD run. As I recall, you spoke so highly of it in a recent episode. Thank you both for your amazing work on the show. Each week, I look forward to seeing your collections, recommendations, and diving deeper into comic lore. Your Monrovian fan, David. And there's a picture of the 3 Daredevil omnibuses he got from the library. I love this idea. I'm a digital guy, though, so I'm on the iPad now.
Yeah, I am too. But yeah,
I love that you moved to Monrovia, David. I'm familiar with the area. I kind of, that Temecula, I've always kind of toyed with moving inland a little bit and getting out of the craziness here and a little more of the suburbs. Just work keeps me here mostly in LA because of the entertainment industry. I have to kind of be close. But the reason why I love Monrovia, it sounds like an evil Eastern European country run by
it sounds like someplace Dr. Doom should own.
Monrovia. Right. What is your next piece of your mail?
My next piece is from Kevin Hurt, who responded to us on eBay. Yes, we're talking about Spawn 357.
On eBay?
No, I'm sorry. Did I say eBay?
Yeah.
YouTube. We're talking about Spawn 357, which there is a foil for, and I didn't think there was any significance to the issue. The value was really in it being a chase comic from whatnot. But apparently there is a first appearance of Marjorie in Spawn 357, a new villain. So there is a significance to the book outside of the whole chase issue thing. The stories, the jury's out on how important Marjorie is in terms of the whole Spawn thing. If it's an important character, then yeah, this book may have some value. But do we know that the day the book is released? I think it's a little early. I still would be hesitant to buy a copy at the prices they're asking for it right now. But thanks, Kevin, for the correction. I appreciate it.
I am smirking and biting my tongue over a major new villain being named Marjorie.
That's like Buffy.
Taylor Green. My last piece of your mail comes to our email at bronzemodergods@gmail.com. There it is. He just got it from 4stringer72. I was showing off my Pat Boon comic books from DC on I think a members only live stream, or maybe it was the regular show. Hello, John and Richard. That Pat Boon comic triggered a memory that came across my music journey many years ago. John, being a giant in the music industry that you are, surely you remember his dip into the metal genre that gave us this nightmare feel right here. Who can forget his covers of Ozzy Osbourne, Dio, and Judas Priest? You got another thing coming. Thanks again for the brilliant content, 4stringer72. And there's Pat. I believe the album was called Pat Boon in a Metal Mood.
Yeah.
I do remember. Yeah. I remember there was a little revival of things like that. That William Shatner had a couple records out with Ben Folds, where he would just do the William Shatner thing for songs like The Pulp, or like Pulp's Common People. Yeah. I'm not going to say Here's you look at this beautiful picture of Pat in his medal regalia at the American Music Awards. I should look on SoundScan and see how many units that album actually sold. I don't think it was about selling albums. I think it was about just getting him press again.
Getting relevancy. Yeah. You got to think Pat Boon, for those who know who this guy is, he was this very, very mainstream musical act back in the 60s.
Late 50s, early 60s. And
Yeah.
he was famous for being milquetoast and white bread by taking songs by African-American artists and sanitizing them for radio play. So like, Little Richard, Tutti Frutti, wouldn't get played in the South or somewhere. So, but the Pat Boone version sure did.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his. I do remember he asked who could forget his cover of Ozzy Osbourne Dio and Judas Priest. I had forgotten it. Thanks to you. It's now back in the front of my brain. Thank you very much.
I'm trying to remember when that was. Was that in 99, 25 years ago for the 25-year rule? I don't know, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Four stringer. Thanks. 25-year rule. We go back to the year 1999, 25 years ago, where we talk about the books that hit when nostalgia hits, which is usually 25 years after your youth. This is a depressing one for me as a huge Valiant Comics fan. Unity 2000, #1. Now it's called Unity 2000, but it came out in 1999. This was every Valiant fan's dream. Jim Shooter returning to the Valiant universe to reboot and clean everything up and make it Shooter again. Plus, Jim Starlin's going to draw it. It's going to be a 6-issue miniseries. It's going to bring Valiant back. It wasn't meant to be because, as you guys remember, the comic book market was at one of its lowest points ever in 1999. And interest in Valiant was at an all-time low after they were bought by Acclaim Video Games, who really screwed everything up. As a result, only 3 issues of the 6-issue miniseries made it to the stands before Valiant Acclaim gave up the ghost and went out of business. Issue 1, for a Valiant comic with Jim Shooter and Jim Starlin, had a print run of only 12,155 copies. Womp, womp. As a result, it just didn't sustain. By issue 3, less than 10,000 copies were being ordered. And so raw copies of issue 1 can be had on eBay for about $5. A CGC 9.8 sold this month for 51 whopping dollars. Issue 3 is one of the scarcest Valiant comics out there, not including the platinum editions or the gold foil editions that were incentives. And it was once upon a time very valuable and really chased after by Valiant completists. However, there hasn't been a raw sale for number 3 quite a bit on eBay. And the last recorded GPA sale for a CGC slab of issue 3 was for a 9.6, which sold in March of last year for $15.
Wow. No, I know there have been other series that have not completed, but later on the story content was released or made available. Is there any sign of the last 3 issues of this run?
Jim Shooter posted, I believe, the plot synopsis on his blog.
Okay.
It was never made available. I don't even know if Jim Starlin even got a chance to draw them. Just to show you the difference in issue 3, the demand in in 2008, a 9.2 of issue 3 sold for $75. So compare that with the 9.6 sale for $15 this year, and you see how this book has just dropped off a cliff, which brings me back to my point about knowing when to sell.
Yeah, that's a very good, closing the circle. You're right. That is a very good point.
Talk about it in the comments while we move on to our underrated books of the week, Richard.
Well, when Reader had the comment about going to your library and getting the graphic novels, I think is a great way of reading the books. I picked for my pick this week a collection of Judge Dredd books called Essential Judge Dredd, specifically the Apocalypse War. Now they've got a number of different issues that cover different story arcs. This is for the 40th anniversary of Judge Dredd. They put this book out in 2021. It's a combination, or it's a collection of 2000 AD progs. And 2000 AD were released weekly in the UK, and each issue is called a prog for some reason. The program, I'm not sure where.
That's what you mean, yeah.
So it's progs 236 through 267 and 269 through 270. So spans pretty long. There's 160 pages in this collection. So it's a good long story arc. It's got the signature Carlos Ezquerra art. It is, if you see here on the cover, it is to me the archetypal Judge Dredd art. Now we've seen a whole bunch of other artists do justice to Judge Dredd, but this is what I always think of when I think of the Judge Dredd art. Now this is a great way to learn the original story. You can still buy all the they printed these in the States. I should have gotten the issue numbers for it in the Judge Dredd run. I apologize, but this story arc is available in Judge Dredd that was published here. You don't have to buy the 2000 ADs to get it, but you know I like collections because all the issues are there all at once, and you don't have to stop because you don't have issue in the middle. You can just read right through it. So it's a great way of reading the whole thing. And this is the story of the war between Mega City 1 and Sovblok, which is their Soviet counterpart. So think of it as if we went into World War III with the Soviets. And so it's that. This was published in 1981. So that whole line of thought was not very far from, Reagan was president back then.
Thank God it changed.
Yeah, thank God things are so different now. What 40 years have brought us. And it's a great. I love military history. So and this is kind of told from the standpoint of a historian. They're actually going through the whole war, and you go from the beginning of the war and all the way to the end. I'm not going to spoil any of it, but it's a great story arc. It has moments of humor with Judge Dredd and his landlord and his robot. It's to me what got me interested and had me develop a love for Judge Dredd as a character, because you got to see, this hard-boiled judge in the middle of a war fighting a losing battle against an overwhelming force. And, his landlord comes through and, for that comic relief. This is a great story. So if you want to get started with Judge Dredd, it's a good way of doing it. This book, it has all of it. There are a number of other books that are part of the Essential Judge Dredd that cover different arcs, as I mentioned. But this is the one that's my favorite. And I thought for the $20 to $25, you could buy this on eBay or Amazon. It's a no-brainer. Pick up a copy and get a chance to read it. And I think you'll enjoy it. I think our audience, I think they're predispositioned to like this kind of story.
Rightly or wrongly, those American Judge Dredd reprints are pretty common in dollar bins.
They are. They're very much so.
It's a very easy series to get into. So yeah, great pick. My underrated book this week is a little bit of a rerun. I don't think I picked it as an underrated book, but I think I've shown it for show and tell before. And it is War Adventures number 12, with this classic Carl Burgos cover with a little help from Saul Brodsky, I believe, on inks. And this should be a classic war cover. It doesn't have a designation. I don't see it spoken in the same hushed tones as Kirby's similar Foxhole covers. But it should be. It's gorgeous. And a CGC 8.0 sold in June of last year for $1,560. Mid-grade copies of this that go for about $400 or so. I think it should be more, honestly.
It's a beautiful cover.
I remember you were with me when I got this. I got this in trade at California Comic-Con 2 years ago for a bunch of modern stuff like Ultimate Fallout 4s and stuff. I traded for this. And it's just, I like showing this because it's just a good example of trading up for things that you don't really care about to get what you really want.
Yeah, how many people, please leave a comment. How many people take books to conventions with the intention of trading them for something else? I don't see that happen very often, to be honest with you.
I say it all the time. A no is free.
Hmm.
If you can carry some stuff, some trade bait, and ask, you might be surprised, but make sure it's something that a dealer wants and can sell. I mean, if you've got a bunch of filler stock, a dealer's not going to be interested in filler stock. You got to be honest with yourself. But if you have hot recent books, like you bought 20 Ultimate Batman or Absolute Batman #1s, take them. I've told my story many times on this podcast about when Valiant was white hot and I traded a whole bunch of early Valiants for an Avengers 4. Can you imagine me trying to do that today?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Trade in stuff you don't want that has value for something you do want that has value. And dealers, as long as they can sell what you give them easier than they can sell what you're trying to trade for, they'll be open to it.
I mean, I had a Wolverine #1 limited series, 9.6. I had no love for that. I think you were with me when I traded that for, I don't know, something stupid like a Lancelot Link or something like that, because you're going to sell that Wolverine #1 a lot quicker than you're going to sell that Lancelot Link.
Exactly.
So a no is free, people. But don't say no from coming back to join us again on Wednesday, if you're a member, on Thursday for the live stream, or if you're not a member, we will see you next Monday.
Everybody, stay safe.